Hi there guys and welcome. These are your handover videos for your Coachman Laser xcel 850. These are a basic walkthrough on how to set up and operate the caravan as if you were coming on or off site. So, starting off first, you have your black hitch head here with silver lever that you have to have pulled up like so to then be able to wind down the jockey wheel onto the tow ball. What will happen is it will snap down, cause that red button to push up and expose a green ring. You have a breakaway cable just here. Now legality states if you have an eye point it has to be used, if not wrap it around the tow bar. You then have your handbrake here. To disengage press down and to engage flick up, but as you can see they do come up with a fair bit of force, so make sure you are careful. You then have 13 pin electrics, so if you do have 7 pin adaptation make sure to bring yourself an adapter. However, you may lose a couple of features such as ALCO ATC. On this particular model it has auto leveling legs, so that will be gone over in another section. We are using test equipment today, so I have a red propane gas bottle. I'd always recommend propane over butane just because it has better performance in winter. Connected to that I have a black gas hose. Now this hose itself is dated 2026, so these run for 5 years. That'll take me to 2031. However, you do have an orange one here, an orange run for 10. That gas hose connects onto the top of this regulator just here. Hand tighten as much as you can and then just nip it up only a little bit using a spanner. You don't want it ridiculously tight as it will put excessive pressure on the washer, causing it to crack and break. As you can see, they have a washer, too much pressure, gas leaks out. On the opposing side, let's start off first. We have your flow. Your flow is used to get clean air in and out of your boiler when operating on gas. Don't have to do anything with this except make sure it's nice, clean and tidy. Next to that, got an external shower point if you wanted to ever use that. And then just here I have an acroll full of clean drinking water. Connected to that I have your water pump. Now to remove your water pump, just pull out like so. You have this white cap to go over the top of the acroll to ensure no nastiness gets in. And then at the bottom we have your strainer. Now it's crucial that the strainer sits at the bottom of the barrel to allow the maximum potential of water to be pulled through. Then when inserting this you do have to just press down the cap to lock it into place so it won't move unless you fancy breaking some plastic. Next to that we have your battery locker. This example does have a battery fitted, and to connect the terminals on you either need a 12 or 13mm spanner. You then have your plug-in for your mains just here. Mains plugs in nice and easy. Then you've got a little cutout to lock up the locker when operating the caravan. Motor movers again will be gone over in another video. And then underneath here we have the 2 points where your wastewater is going to come out of. You'll need some 28.5mm waste pipe to feed it into a waste master that can then be emptied out at the appropriate point on site. Above that we have your cassette toilet. To remove that, press up on the orange handle and pull out like so. Now this handle does extend out and up, so it can be used similar to a carry-on suitcase. Then once you're at your emptying point on site, twist this head to the side, open up this cap. That's a little bit stiff, that one. Then what you want to do is tilt, and at the same time as tilting, continually pressing that vent button. Now, as you can see on my example, I put in some fresh water in this compartment after it's been emptied. Give it a bit of a shake, and again, tilt and vent, just so it smells a bit nicer. Then on this cap here, you have measurements of both imperial and metric, and that is for your blue chemical. Blue chemical goes into there, back onto the cap, and push it in so the orange handle sits behind those white teeth. Above that we have your flush tank. The flush tank has a capacity to hold around 12 litres of water. However, I wouldn't recommend putting in any more than 10 as you don't want to overfill the compartment. You can also add some pink chemical which works as a bleach without being corrosive. Now you don't want to travel with either of these too full, so just up here got a little bung to drain out any remaining water. The caravan itself will be fully drained off before you leave with it. Then underneath your right hand side seat, you have all of this here, so I wouldn't recommend storing anything under here. You have your boiler just here, which you can pull back that panel if you ever need to do a reset. And then you have two drain valves. The drain valves facing in the position as they are now is allowing the flow of water to come through. However, when you collect the caravan, they will both be in the vertical position. Vertical position drains out any remaining water in the system, so November to March have that up permanently unless you're actively using the caravan, and anytime you come off site, switch it up as well. You then have your two power touch boxes, which are pretty much for brain boxes for your motor movers. And again, if you ever have issues, you can pull back that panel to do a reset. You also have your ignition point situated on the top. That black button just there is your emergency stop for your EMP legs. You then have your solar panel regulator situated next to it. And just here as well, we have all of your trips and fuses. All your trips in the upright position and all your fuses in the correct position. I'd always recommend to carry some extra fuses across the van. Then here we have your main control panel. So at the top, you can see that mains is currently plugged in with the legs down and the pump is on. It then gives you the time. It isn't 26 minutes past 8 at night. You can change that in the settings. You have these two buttons to flick through some settings. So first up, you have the actual settings itself. So you've got display, sound, calibrate water, auto pump. You then have notifications, firmware, and whatever you have set it to, you can save and exit by pressing the center button. You then have fill tank. Now on this one, it does have the onboard tank system. Today, we are just going to be using the boiler itself. However, if I wanted to fill the onboard tank system, I would press on this enter button and it will gradually show me the percentage amount that's inside it. It is the same for this as well. You have the pump select. So you either have the choice of internal pump, which is the actual onboard tank system, or external pump, which is straight from the acroll to the boiler to the tap. Whilst internal is straight from the acroll to fill the tank, for the tank to then be transferred over to the tap. Again, you have another water level just here for the onboard tank. Internal temperature is 16 degrees. Now that may slightly differ on your outer panel, but do not be afraid of that. You then have 13.7 volts. Now, as we are plugged into mains at the moment, that will show the amount coming from the mains. And then you're back to the start as well. So, next up we have internal lights, which we can just press in, and then you can just use your representative switches. And then you have your awning lights, so press that in, awning is on, go to the outside, and you can see that is on just there. So with the pump itself, what you would do is press in that button, so it now says pump off, press it in, pump is on. When the boiler itself is full, that little tap symbol will go, and then you come over to your taps itself. What you want to do is open up on both hot and cold and let it run for about 30 seconds. Now, as I don't currently have the heating on, it's not going to pull through correctly on the hot setting. This is what it looks like when it's pulling through on cold. So, as you can see, nice steady continuous stream. What you're looking for is a stream like this, and you want to let it run for around about 30 seconds. Now, when you press that pump button, I'd recommend about 2 minutes of waiting to allow it to be pulled through, just so it can get in and get around the system properly. So that's what you're looking for. However, as I don't have the heating on, if I switched it over to hot, as you can see, there's no hot water, so it's just spurting out nothing. But on cold, it's nice and steady. For hot itself, you do have to wait around about an hour for it to then be nice and continuous. Now, underneath your left-hand side seat, you do have the onboard tank system here. Now, you can open it up from the top if you wanted to physically see the amount of water that was inside it. You then just have to twist this cap back on. However, you have this switch here now facing in the position it is now. That is allowing water to come through. Switch it to that side. Sorry, I've done that the wrong way around. That is allowing water to come through. That is draining off any water inside the system. So you first have to have it in the correct position before you then come and use this up here if you wanted to select internal pump. We then have your toilet operation here. So pressing in the button on the top, you can hear that motor. That motor is what will push through any water inside the system. Then to remove the waste, you press away on the handle, opens up the catch, pull it back towards you, and it shuts up the catch. When the cassette is full, there will be a red light on there telling you to empty. And here we have your Alder Wet central heating. So pressing in on your button just here, it will flash up. Now that button, that little LED I should say, will continually stay on. Now, as I mentioned, on the top, it says internal temperature is currently 16.5 and the desired temperature is 20 degrees. I can then individually tap to go up to set it to a different temperature, or I can press and hold, and I've got a couple of choices. Similar to this panel, you then have a little bit there to show you that mains is plugged in. Press the menu and you come to this screen. So right now it shows me indoor temperature 17.5. Press in on this one, and this is for your energy source. So you can either use 1, 2 or 3 kilowatts of electric. Now do be aware that some sites do not have 3 kilowatt capacity. Or gas, or a mixture of gas in 1, 2 and 3. So you've got the choice of gas, mains or both. And then if you flick down, you have a priority loader, a load monitor and a high altitude mode as well. But I don't know how often you're going above 1,000 meters in a van. You then have your hot water setting here, which is either off, on, which will get the water temperature to around about 40 to 60 degrees, or boost. Now what boost does, it prioritizes heating the water over heating the actual caravan. It does that for 30 minutes. Then after those 30 minutes, it will then drop back down to on. Now, naturally this screen will fade off when not interacted with in a little bit, but if you don't want the heated and hot water on at all, press in and it's no longer on. And just here we have your hob grill and oven. Now all of this operates on gas minus the electric plate. So for the electric plate, all you have to do is spin it to whatever mark and it will get to temperature. Everything else you have to press in on the dial, twist it to the side and press your igniter just here. You also have this light button for a light inside the oven. Now it may be a case that these will light and then cut out. That is natural, that is the gas making its way through its system. So if it does cut out, just redo it and it should stay lit. This is what it looks like when they are all lit. As you can see, all burners nice and lit. Flick it back to the central position and it turns it off. And it's the same concept for your grill. As you can see, that's all nice and lit. And finally, your oven. Now make sure that this tray as well does not intrude on the igniter. So let's see if I can do that with one hand. There you can see, all nice and lit. Any other real thing to note, if you're travelling with a gas bottle, make sure the bottle itself is off, and you have to have this glass sheet down when travelling. Above it, you do have a built-in extractor fan. So you press in on the on here, you then have your fan speed. So it's completely off. You can see 3 fins spinning, and 4, and then that is max. You then have a light as well, and to turn that off, just press in there. You then have your Thetford fridge operation. So it is a fridge and then a freezer. So for this, what you want to do is press and hold in on this button. It will flash up and go to its most recent memory, which in this case is mains. As you can see, when it's on, it lights up inside. To change the source, press and hold in on this black square. It will then begin to flash up. You then have a couple of choices. So you either have mains, that battery symbol, which is only representative of 13-pin electric whilst towing, that flame, which is representative of gas, or A. A represents auto, so it will automatically choose what the best source to use is. You then have the amount of power coming in, so 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. 5 being the most powerful, so it's going to chill it the quickest. Even on full capacity, it does take around 4 hours. As you can see, A has chosen mains. Now, let's say for instance, we want to select gas. Go back over, select gas, on full. Now for gas, you'll gradually hear it tick in. Then once it's finished ticking, that means it is then lit. You don't have to do anything yourself for this. The only thing I would recommend is running through all your hot grill and oven first. Then that little blue LED will stay on continuously. However, this screen will fade off. So when you want the fridge completely off, press and hold in and it will turn itself off. He says press and hold in. No more light there. No more light inside. Then for the motor mover, press in on your key and twist it to the side, and that is situated under your right side seat. Then grab your remote as standard, turn it on using your 2 green buttons, press in, it will flash over and go to the side. Then you can come outside and you can see that when I press forwards, your rollers are going backwards, side to side as well. Press in to turn it off and you can then test it to see that it is off. However, when you're not operating using the motor mover, you can keep the key inside the actual holster bit. However, if I'll just lift that up for a second, make sure that it's actually twisted away.